October, and even September are times when people adorn their homes with decorations eerie, frightening, and sometimes grotesque. But I only celebrate Halloween on the 31st. When I think of my childhood, it's a miracle I even put in that much effort to celebrate it. Yet I learned, after reaching adulthood and living on my own, that taking time to enjoy the holiday could be therapeutic. And since that revelation, I've always made sure to have no work scheduled for October the 31st and November the 1st. And so, on the morning of Halloween, I found myself with 3 well-shaped pumpkins, a carving kit, and a pack of small candles I had purchased just a few days before. My first step was to add the ambiance to my home that had been lacking in the past several weeks, as opposed to my neighbors, with their trees covered in white stuffing shaped into spider webs, and skeletons and ghouls hiding behind their bushes. Some homes had flashing lights, and others even had fog machines. For my home, I found that 3 jack-o'-lanterns would do the trick. Most kids didn't come to the street for the fear, but for the candy, which was something I could appreciate. As for the pumpkins, after hollowing them out, I carved each with the same face I carved every year. One with the traditional jack-o'-lantern eyes, nose, and smile. Another with the traditional jack-o'-lantern eyes, nose, and frown. And the third I shaped into that of a mask I'd seen as a child, which frightened me even to this day. Slits for eyes, thin, downturned, and angry eyebrows, a small shadow to hint at the shape of a nose, and a wide, jagged, and rictus grin stretching from one ear to the other. As I put out the jack-o'-lanterns, lighting the candles within each of them, and filled my largest bowl with candy, I couldn't help but reflect, as I did every year, on the first time I had seen that mask. As a child, I had always been wimpy, a coward and a crybaby. Because of this, I had few friends, and it was made worse by me being the youngest kid in the surrounding streets of my suburb. The kids at school might tease me, but the older kids both on and around my street would bully me. In hindsight, I know that I was just an easy target for them. But at the time, I felt that they despised me and wanted me dead. That October, as I went shopping with my mom for my own Halloween costume, we came across the mask. Orange, plastic, simple, and with a string in the back to hold it in place. It couldn't have been the most frightening mask in the aisle of that store, yet my legs wobbled, my eyes watered, and I choked my voice again and again, begging my mom to take me somewhere else. She must have been exhausted with my antics, and grabbed a cheap costume to finish up our trip so we could leave. But that night, and each night after until Halloween, I had nightmares of that mask, adorning a face of some hooded figure, its fingers shaped like claws, and its black clothing stained red with blood. It took all I could not to scream each night when I woke up. Now, as I'm older, I know I have to conquer the fears that controlled me for so much of my youth. Passing out candy to trick-or-treaters each year is more therapeutic than I had once believed possible. Innocent children in cute costumes, saying in squeaky or embarrassed voices, "Trick or treat," as their adoring parents watch on with warm smiles. A holiday, plagued by fear and horror, turned adorable in an instant. The youngest kids always seemed less hesitant to approach my house, decorated with naught but 3 jack-o'-lanterns, than they are to visit other homes on the street covered in menageries of grotesqueries. Though they always seem to avoid looking at the face of my 3rd jack-o'-lantern. I suppose fear is intergenerational. As the evening morphs into the night and the sky darkens, I cannot help but remember the second time I saw that mask. The Halloween after I had seen it in the store, I had separated from my friend when we had finished our trick-or-treating route. We had gone to the streets around his house, where the adults were generous with their candy and light on the frightening motifs that graced the homes of my street. I walked alone in the dark. It had been a different time back then, when parents were less frightened for the safety of their children. Or, at least, my parents were less frightened. But as I passed by a small, dark canyon a few blocks from my street, I found the mask once more. Straight out of my nightmares, the mask, covering the face of a hooded figure all dressed in black, leapt out at me from the shadows. I screamed, tripped over myself, and fell down the hill of the canyon. From my arm came a shooting pain. It hurt so bad I couldn't think. My immobility doomed me, for coming down the hill was the figure in black, and surrounding them were several others, each like shadows of people, though their features were deformed even in the dark. I tried to scream again, but I had been crying from the pain. They descended upon me, seizing my arms and legs, even the arm that hurt, shaking it so much that I saw black spots in my eyes, even black against the darkness of the canyon. Something soft was jabbed into my mouth, muffling my cries and screams. As I was half dragged and half carried deeper into the bushes and brambles and stunted trees of the canyon. When they dropped me on the ground with a thud, I thought I might black out. But from the darkness came a light. One of them had ignited a lighter. From the dim yellow glow, I saw their faces. Misshapen monsters and beasts, witches, wolves, and ghouls. I whimpered through my gag. They each laughed hideously, and at their head stood the figure in black, his orange jack-o'-lantern mask giving a dull glow, but its thin eyes and jagged smile were pitch black, as if there was no life or soul within. He withdrew a hand from his pocket, and I saw the glint of steel. A knife, small enough to hide, but sharp enough to cut and peel. The rest only comes in flashes, brief images dulled by time, but made immemorial in my mind from the terror I felt when I saw them. So now, as I see parents watching closely over their children as they trick-or-treated, happy, comforting, and protective, I feel both warmed and saddened. It had taken me hours before I could drag myself home, but I was not met with words of comfort. I was berated for the trouble I had caused, and how I had worked myself into a frenzy, as I always did, when I let myself become afraid of nothing. I had stayed out too late and hurt myself, and had concocted some horror story built up by my own overactive fear. The broken arm, the precision cuts, the peeled skin. It had all happened to me when I had stumbled and fallen. And it would never matter just how much the older kids around my home would see me in the weeks to come and barely cover their hideous laughter. As the night grew deeper and the candy in my bowl emptied, I blew out the candles in my jack-o'-lantern and went into my home. It had been good for my psyche to see the innocent children and caring parents on Halloween. I went into my house and turned off the lights one by one, and went into my bedroom and to the side of my bed. I had laid it all out there ahead of time. I pulled on the black pants, put on the black hoodie, laced up the black shoes, and covered my hands with the black gloves. In my pocket, I placed a knife, small enough to hide, but sharp enough to cut and peel. And on my face, I placed an orange mask with slits for eyes, thin, downturned, and angry eyebrows, shadows to hint at the shape of a nose, and a wide, jagged, and rictus grin that stretched from one ear to the other. I could not see my reflection, but I knew the thin eyes and jagged mouth were black, as if there were no life or soul within. I snuck out from my home so none could see me, and reflected on how Halloween had become truly therapeutic. Since all the good boys and girls, along with their parents, had returned home as they should, I yearned to share in that same festive spirit that had been gifted to me as a child. In the dark, I would find grotesque creatures with hideous laughs and voices like children, and would provide them with my own happy Halloween.